Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Sorry to have kept you waiting, but we did have a rather full agenda this evening on Eastern, but we did get through it. So, the usual, specifically for the lady up there in the public gallery, there is no plan for a fire alarm test this evening. So if you hear a continuously ringing bell, we should hot foot it out of the building via the green marked doors there, or one to my right, and hide underneath the canopy outside Waitrose. Members and Madam upstairs there, could we please switch our mobile phones off or to silent? And we are also being webcast, so do please use your microphones and make sure your cards are plugged in. Item 1 on the agenda then, the minutes of our meeting held on the 11th of February, and not having been here on the 11th of February, I do thank the Vice Chairman here for having held the fort in my absence. I'm told she did an absolutely splendid job. Thank you again. Apologies for absence, Fiona.
Thank you, Chairman. I've had apologies from Councillors Peter Martin, Bryn Morgan, Stephen Reynolds, Adam Taylor-Smith, Simon Thornton and Nick Williams.
Thank you very much. Declarations of interest?
None received, Chairman.
Any late declarations, members? No? Moving on. Questions by members of the public?
None, Chairman.
Any relevant updates to government guidance or legislation since the last meeting? Elizabeth.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, there are two matters just to brief you on this evening in respect of changes to government guidance, and these are going to be coming into effect from April the 6th. The first one is in relation to sustainable urban drainage and surface water matters. The government is expected to publish shortly an update to the National Planning Policy Guidance, which will indicate that major developments should incorporate SUDS schemes. This, of course, are sustainable systems which ensure surface water drainage drains largely within the site as opposed to taking the surface water off the site. They've also confirmed that from the 6th of April, the County Council, as lead local flood authority, is going to become a statutory consultee in respect of surface water matters and for commenting on SUDS schemes. I think members will probably be aware that we have for quite a number of years been requiring SUDS schemes in major developments, and certainly those of you that are members of the Joint Planning Committee will have seen some SUDS schemes coming before you in some of the major developments that have been considered since Christmas. So this isn't really going to be much of a change for Waverley. We are, for all intents and purposes, ahead of the game. But what it will do is give us more clout in insisting that schemes do include sustainable systems, and also to ensure that there are adequate maintenance arrangements put in place to ensure that they are maintained properly for the lifetime of the development. The other change that's going to be coming into effect is in respect of infrastructure provision. Members will be aware some changes were brought into effect from November of last year, which reduced our ability to ask for infrastructure payments for small-scale developments. There's a further change which will mean that from the 6th of April, where the SIL regulations are going to be changing, that we will only be able to provide infrastructure in terms of the provision of 5 planning permissions. So any piece of infrastructure or type of infrastructure can only rely on the provision of 5 planning permissions. This is a transitional arrangement which will be pending the introduction of a SIL regime, which of course we're hoping to introduce fairly soon in relation to our emerging local plan. The PIC calculator will no longer be the basis of our infrastructure calculations, and going forward in asking for infrastructure payments, we'll be expecting applicants to propose heads of terms to provide infrastructure against particular matters which they'll have to agree up front with the infrastructure providers, are bespoke elements of provision which can be identified as being necessary to the developments being proposed. So in many respects it will be a more specific arrangement than you're seeing at the moment, where there are contributions made towards broader areas. In relation to this, officers, and particularly our policy team, have been putting in place the necessary arrangements to contact the infrastructure providers and alert them to the change that's coming forward. But what you will see as planning committee members is a change to the way we present these matters in our reports, in that we'll be explaining the new provisions mean for a major development. We're expecting the requirements to be identified by the infrastructure providers, and we'll be able to articulate those hopefully more specifically in reports, and expecting them to monitor this provision that they can't use more than 5 planning permissions to actually provide a piece of infrastructure. So we're expecting these changes, both of them, to come into effect from the 6th of April. We haven't yet had the final go-ahead from government. They're leaving it pretty late, but I anticipate by the time of your next meeting we'll be able to give you a further update and confirm that these arrangements are in place. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Moving quickly on to item 6 now. Mr. Martin.
I'm sorry, Chairman, I just wondered if I could just ask a question, because I didn't quite understand what Ms Sims meant by this 5 planning applications, and I just wondered if perhaps you could explain that further, exactly what that actually means in sort of layman's terms, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So, for example, for a piece of infrastructure that's identified, so it might be, for example, a bridge, the Highway Authority, in wishing to fund that bridge, can only request contributions from 5 planning permissions maximum. That's just an example. So they will need to monitor to make sure that they're not expecting more than 5 developments to contribute to a single piece of infrastructure. To be honest, we're a little unclear of some of the terminology and what government actually means, and we're hoping there'll be more guidance made clear. And I certainly think the infrastructure providers, who have the responsibility of ensuring that they're not asking for more than they're able to, become clearer on the meaning of a piece of infrastructure or an area of infrastructure. But that is what the guidance is requiring. Does that help, Councillor Martin? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item 6 then, members please note the that new bit, I think it's new, isn't it? New bit about background papers and the implications for crime, disorder and community safety. 6.1, well, we missed the 9th of March, and I don't think we actually do need a site visit, as we already had one. Should somebody decide that we should have one, it'll be on the 20th of April at a time to be agreed. So moving on then to the only application this evening, item B1 WA 2014/2442. Application under Regulation 3 for the erection of a pair of semi-detached dwellings following the demolition of the existing semi-detached dwellings. Part details pursuant to outline consent granted under WA 2014/0932, which is the Phase 1 of outline consent to provide show houses at 85 Ockford Ridge, Godalming. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know whether you have met Peter Cleveland. He sits in front of me now. He occupies the chair that Tim Lipscomb vacated some while ago, and I'm sure Peter is very much up to that challenge. Peter, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for that welcome. Yes, this is a site that relates to part of the Council's house building regeneration scheme at Ockford Ridge in Godalming. You'll see location plan on the screen here. The site in question that we're looking at seeks permission for approval of reserve matters for 2 dwellings to be used as a show home. The particular site in question that we're looking at is at the southern part of the overall development. It's hatched in green. This application follows the approval by the Council of a hybrid application. The hybrid application permitted the construction of 99 dwellings to replace 65 across 4 phases, as you can see outlined there from north to south. The area hatched in blue is the first phase. The hybrid application permitted 16 dwellings, and that was approved in detail, so all detailed matters related to that part of the site have been approved, and it improved 83 dwellings in outline form with only means of access approved. Appearance, layout, scale and landscaping were reserved matters. this application purely relates to the new show homes, and that's what we're considering before us. So the site is currently occupied by existing semi-detached properties. You can see here, this is a picture from Ockford Ridge looking northwards towards the existing, and that's the rear gardens of the properties and the rear elevation. The second photo is looking south down Ockford Ridge. You'll notice the position of the dwellings there. They're very close to the road, and they've got a rather sort of poor relationship with the street and the layout of the surrounding properties. They are to be demolished, and they are to be replaced by the show homes. What's actually proposed, they're to be used as show homes initially as part of the wider development, but eventually they will be used for residential properties. We have therefore been provided two layouts. The one to your left shows the layout as it will be seen, as it will be used as a show home. So we've got the access to the south of the properties, which will run down the side and to the rear, and some parking areas for those people visiting the show homes and the marketing team. We've got a second layout which will be implemented following the successful occupation of all the remaining properties. You'll see here private front gardens provided, the same access down the side of the property, and formal parking spaces to the rear. It provides 6 spaces, and that is over and above the council's standards for this size of dwellings. We've got 1 3-bed and 1 2-bed, and the council's standards require 5 parking spaces, and in this case we've got 6 provided. In terms of the elevations, they're traditional in their appearance. They're finished in red brick and render to the front and side elevations. They've got chimney detailing and a gable pitched roof, and also a gable detailing to the front. Here's the rear elevation. Similarly, but the eaves height drops slightly lower. We've got the first floor windows projecting through the eaves, and we've got some timber detailing proposed on the rear elevations to add a little bit of visual interest on there. We've got the ground floor plan here: kitchen, diner, living room, circulation areas. Ground floor of both properties. At first floor, the 2 bedrooms front and rear of a bathroom, and the 3-bed property, you'll notice, is slightly wider and provides 3 bedrooms at first floor level and the bathroom. So in terms of the determining issues, the principle of development has been established with the approval of the hybrid application. So we're purely looking at the design and layout of the scheme. As with the highway impact, the overall impacts of 99 dwellings again has been considered with the earlier approval. But with this scheme, specifically in terms of the detailed layout, County Council are happy with the layout, and our parking provision is above the required minimum standard. I've also got impact on trees in there. There are some trees within the site, but they are all proposed to be removed and replaced with a new planting scheme. The trees on site aren't considered to be any merit, and then the overall scheme that comes forward outweighs their loss. The matters of judgment are the impact on visual amenity. We've looked at the layout and appearance of the properties, and we think they're of a good standard. They match what's been approved in the detailed approval of the 16 dwellings and follow that design approach. In terms of the impact on residential amenity, the properties maintain sufficient space from some of the existing and properties that will be maintained along Ockford Ridge, and therefore amenity of neighbouring properties will be preserved. The last point there is landscaping. You'll note on page 16 of the agenda we were waiting comments from colleagues from the landscape and tree officer. These have now been received. So I'll move forward to the report update, which sets these out, which confirms that the proposed, or the tree report submitted with the scheme and the landscaping scheme is acceptable, subject to conditions to secure the appropriate landscaping scheme. No objection has been raised. This condition's already applied at condition 1, and the approval of plans are listed there. You'll also notice in the update to the report there's an additional condition which is proposed as condition 12, and that prevents any hard standing being provided to the front of properties, and that's to prevent additional parking being provided, and loss of the soft landscaping and open frontage to the street scenes, and we think that's important to protect the amenity, and there's sufficient parking spaces provided. So subject to that condition, there's a revised recommendation which reads as follows: that the following matters, appearance, landscaping, layout and scale, these being the reserve matters, be approved subject to conditions set out in the agenda and the additional condition number 12 that I've just referred to. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Peter. Members? I don't. Ms Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, overall, I think this is a great improvement. I mean, irrespective of the fact that I think it's really vital that we have show homes for residents to get a better understanding of the regeneration. That to one side, just in terms of how the footprint is used, I think the reorientation of the houses so that they face the road is a great improvement, and that is a very, very difficult little corner where it comes in from Hawthorne, and to have the landscaping taking it back so that we have proper start to the green walk, which will go past there and then on through the development, I think is also a great improvement. I have one question. I note the additional update, but on page 17 it does mention that further to the comments from the officer about the resistance to allowing hard standing going in the front of the houses and how to keep a soft appropriate landscape element there, that you're talking about hedging in the front, on the front private space. Now a lot of residents up at Ockford Ridge have a great liking for their privet hedges that have always actually been quite a part of the character, is that they've all had privet hedgings, and I'm assuming that will be kept. I mean, as part of the overall landscaping of the new site, that we will keep that privet hedge. There's no. Will that be discussed later? And
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, on this layout here, this is the final layout for the residential properties, the one on the right-hand side, and this actual area here shows hedging. So that we've conditioned that to be provided prior to the occupation, and any landscaping in the outline approval, any landscaping provided has to be retained for 5 years, and if it dies or becomes diseased and needs replacing, it has to be replaced under that. Beyond that timescale, we can't control it further beyond there, but there is provision to retain that as far as possible and control it as far as we can.
but the details will come back to committee, won't it? Am I right? Sorry,
no, just leave the details.
This is the details. I see. Okay. Right. It's just that I'm concerned that the hedging is in keeping with the rest of the estate, and it's all privet throughout. That's my point. But I don't know if it's appropriate at this point to raise the actual species of plants that are put in. That's my concern.
I think it's, Mr. Chairman, I think it would be helpful if you have any particular species in mind to let us know at this point. But the wider landscaping scheme, that will come back to members. You're correct there. It's only these individual two properties, which is where we're dealing specifically now with these. No more details will come back with regard to these properties, but the wider scheme, we will see in front of members those details again.
I think that will be for another day, Ms. Thompson. Okay. Any other speakers? Vice Chairman.
Thank you. I have mentioned this before, and I must mention it now. I think, apart from the fact that I think this is really very exciting initiative, and I'm really proud of Waverley, that we are building, excuse me, sorry, that we're building all these affordable homes. I'm really thrilled about that. But what struck me when I saw the design was the chimneys, and they serve no purpose other than just to design, and I think they're quite an expensive additive. They don't do anything. I don't think they particularly enhance, but that's, I know, a matter of opinion. But it is quite costly. There's a lot of bricks in those chimney stacks. They're external chimney stacks. There's a lot of bricks there, and they're adding a lot of cost onto the build. If we must have them, why can't we have proper fireplaces inside? They don't serve any purpose at all. And I just would like to establish that is how I feel about those chimneys. That's all. I think they'll probably stay, and they probably won't get their fireplaces. But if it is at all possible, I think that would be a very good use for what is otherwise just an appendage stuck on the outside. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think, though, we have to assess the application as it stands. Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Chairman. Peter, you'll have to get used to me going on about parking and things like that. Sorry about that. It's just that I want to reflect my usual worries. And it is indeed about vehicles and the parking areas for them. Because I look at those floor plans and at the maximum occupation, and assuming that perhaps there's teenagers who are still living with parents and all that, 2-bedroom could become sort of 4 people, and the 3-bedroom could be 5 people. But let's not go to those extremes. I think a reality of vehicles that we can expect is in total about 7. So already we've gone one over the 6 spaces that are there. If any property has more than, for example, the 3 spaces allocated to them, then where will those vehicles go? I don't really see them easily going in that space that is available to sort of draw into the parking spaces. So again, does that mean they're going to end up on the road, partly on the pavement? These are just observations, that's all. And the other thing is the width of that access track road. Does that allow for vehicles to pass each other, or would, if there were 2 vehicles round about the same time, would one have to sort of stay at one end while the other sort of goes in? It's these sort of things that worry me. I know we can't probably do much about it, but I don't perceive that in these plans and the plans we see these days that we're doing anything to stop the problems that we're living with at the moment. So, I mean, I don't know what your comments are on the sort of possibility of manoeuvring vehicles in that parking area where there's 6 spaces and the sort of approach area. I think things are very tight. And we have no legislation to say everybody will have a smart car. So there could be some Bentleys out. No, I'm exaggerating. But, I mean, 4x4s are quite large these days.
There's just a couple of points I'll come back on. Firstly, I'll just start on that last point. With the size of the spaces, they are sufficient size to meet the council's standards for car parking spaces. I know that you're concerned with those, but we have to rely on the adopted standards we've got, and what's been provided is over and above that. So we couldn't. I can understand your concerns, but we couldn't really go back and insist on more on that basis, purely because of our adopted standards and that they're meeting them and going above them. With regards to the width, that is a single width for one car. The county highway officers have looked at it, and they're happy that it's not going to be the intensification of the use. A number of people using that will cause a problem with people backing up onto the highway and causing a highway safety issue. There's just a third point I'll probably make there with regards to informal parking. The landscaping, there's not restrictions on the highway at that point, so they potentially could park along the highway. And the landscaping scheme proposes some quite large trees along the footpath here. So if if you look on the right hand of your screen, these trees, which will prevent cars from actually bumping up on the curb and parking there. So there will be some sort of prevention of people going there, but actually informal parking along the street is unrestricted, and we wouldn't be able to control that.
If I could just add as well, the wider landscaping strategy for the full 99 dwellings does include some visitor spacing on street as well, incorporated into the landscaping design. So there will be visitor informal parking dotted around the whole site, which will soak up any extra parking that you're rightly concerned of. We are living in a time in Waverley where people have lots of cars, and the designers are designing that overspill car parking into the scheme, where you see that reserve matters coming forward at some point.
Mr. Martin.
I take a somewhat different view. I think 6 spaces for this pair of semi-detached houses is adequate. I think actually it's more than the parking provision for the existing dwellings around Ockford Ridge. Ockford Ridge is not a particularly busy road. It's not really a through road. It's predominantly used by residents that live on it. The passage by the side of the house is going to be used by the occupiers and owners of that pair of semi-detached houses. It's the length of the house. I don't think I wouldn't expect to see passing places down there. But I think yes, in extremis you could see lots of cars being used there. But I suspect most of the properties in this area will not have 3 cars apiece, 6 cars between 2. I think this is more than enough spacing for this sort of property in this sort of area, and I'm entirely comfortable with the plans as they stand.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Here we go then to page 2 of the update sheet. The revised recommendation there that following matters: appearance, landscaping, layout and scale, reserve matters be approved subject to the conditions set out in the agenda and the additional condition 12 on page 1 of the update sheet. Can I see those members in favour of that recommendation, please? We are unanimous. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, sorry to have kept you waiting, and can I thank the office. It's been a long evening, and we have had some very excellent reports as well. Sorry, Joe, you didn't get to say anything at all, but your presence with us has been welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, safe journey home. Thank you.